I would like to welcome everyone to Project X Startup Law webinar today with William Hanisch.
Will Hanisch. Yep.
Will Hanisch. Will Hanisch.
Yep.
Very sorry about that, sir.
No,
With
you're fine.
Will Hanisch. He is a DU alum and entertainment attorney experienced in matters of business development, entertainment law, corporate complaints, and contract drafting and negotiation. So I'll pass it off to him so he can take over the webinar for today. Just letting you guys know, you guys can drop things in the chat, ask some questions or the Q&A. And if you guys ever need to watch this again, this will be uploaded to the Project X website. And then I'll just pass it over to Will to take it away.
All right, perfect. Hi, everybody. My name's Will Hanisch. I'm an attorney here in Denver, Colorado. As was mentioned, I'm an alum of DU. I practice in business development, corporate compliance, all of the things that were said. Today, we're going to kind of run through the process of startups and getting it from not the funding approach, but rather from development of the idea through organization, partnerships, all the way up to that first employee. We will start with, you've got your idea. So if you have an idea for your business, and most of you probably are if you're here, the first point is that you need to set up a business plan. You have to set up realistic goals, run through what you want your business to be, but do it in a stepped approach. Look at it from a 1 month, 1 quarter, 1 year, and build it out over time. Because one of the big things that happens is people set these goals that are too lofty for too soon. And you may be able to conquer the world, but you need to take it step by step. And breaking it down into these clear goal-driven metrics will allow you to meet your needs and allow your business to grow organically and see when you need some additional help, if it's time for funding rounds or if you need some outside investment of some sort. And so this business plan is really the core of how your business starts. The next thing that is really important is to state your mission. I know this sounds cheesy, but one of the things that happens is people often lose sight of what their business is meant to do, what they wanted it to do, what value it instills to the community and value it instills to their customers, and why they wanted to do this in the first place. This is something that I would spend some serious time on this mission, because if you're going to bring on any sort of partners, or if you're going to have any sort of company culture, it starts with this mission. And the mission is how the natural growth occurs, because what you find important is what sets you apart from your competitors in the space or other businesses that might offer similar services. The next thing to think about when you're doing your business plan is your timelines. What does it look like for launch of your first product or your first sale or the launch of your website? Look at all these different opportunities that you have to grow and extrapolate it out so that you can break it down into, all right, I want to have my website launch 30 days from today. I want to be able to have my my bank account needs to be set up by the end of the week. Set out those timelines, calendar it, build it into your business plan so that you can see if you're on track. This is really important when you're starting to work with other people, because it shows if you're on track. One, it shows a commitment level to the plan, but two, it allows you to see your growth, because setting up a new business is really hard. It takes a lot out of you emotionally, and it can be very frustrating. But seeing these goals and these things that you've done on your timelines allows you to experience some sort of accomplishment from seeing what you have done. The next, down to the less fun, is setting your expenses. Make sure that you are doing realistic accounting. It is really hard to plan out a week, let alone a month or a quarter. But you need to look at what your fixed costs are and look at what type of income you're bringing in or you anticipate bringing in, and seeing how that will offset and allow you to grow or scale, all the things that we want to see. But it all comes down to how much money and what your burn rate is. Your burn rate is how much money that you're spending that every month is going to come out for you to have consistent operation. Once you've set up your business plan, it's a great time. You've got this great idea, you've developed it. It's time to set down your roots and have some sort of entity formation. A lot of folks will start their business just casually and they'll just let it grow, and they don't necessarily register it with the state, and it's kind of starts from nothing. But if you're planning this, then what you need to do is you need to have an entity formation. It's very important. An entity formation could be an LLC or corporation. That doesn't matter as much as just making sure that that happens. Because if you have any interaction with the public, you have a certain amount of risk. And risk and liabilities, they can take your business down in no time. And setting up the LLC or the corporation will allow you to put up a veil, a corporate veil between your personal assets, so your house, your car, any of those things, and your business. Your business, it becomes a separate entity and it runs separately. And it can, if it gets sued, or a claim is made against it, or allegations are made against it, it stays for the most part with that entity. And that entity can shield you from the fallout of the corporation or LLC, the liability, the lawsuit, all of those things. When you setting up a corporation or an LLC is fairly straightforward. The process is going to your Secretary of State website. You register articles of organization for an LLC. You file for incorporation for a corporation. And then you'll go to the Secretary of State and file any licensing requirements that you need, and file for an FEIN, employer identification number. Once you've set up either your LLC or your corporation, this is a perfect time to consult with an accountant. That is a time to look at, all right, I've got this LLC or this corporation. What is the tax structure that I want for my business? Is it time should I do an S election? Should I not? What does that look like? Each business has such a different evaluation that there's not a one size fits all answer. However, when you're just starting and funds are super, super tight, I generally recommend going with an LLC. It's the easiest to comply with. It still has a security blanket for you where the liability it can't penetrate unless you make mistakes. But if you've set it up properly, it will protect you. As you grow, you can either file for an S election later in the year, and this S election is to treat your LLC or your corporation as a small or an S corp, and it allows you to avoid some taxes, and it allows you to put yourself on payroll, and it helps some of these things. But it's not something that you have to make a decision right when you start. You could start with an LLC or a corporation and then grow into a different entity type. You'll have to set the company up again, or you'll have to file with the IRS. Neither one of them is a particularly strenuous task. So that's your second step after the business plan. The third, and this it applies back to both of them, is assessing what type of business you have. Do you have partners? Do you have investors? Do you have anybody that's involved with you and that is working with you on this company? If you do, then you need to have a framework of what your partnership looks like. Because without it, you don't know what obligations you have, you don't know what capital contribution expectations there are, or the money that's being put into the company. You don't know who has the power to do what. And without some framework, you're on equal footing. It will be assumed that you are equal partners if you just file as a two-member LLC, and both people can do whatever they like for the business because they both have what we call agency, the ability to contract for the company, the ability to hire, the ability to fire, all of those different things. And so once you have this framework put together, it's a great next step to put an operating agreement in place or a shareholders agreement in place. An operating agreement's for an LLC. A shareholders agreement is for a corporation. This shareholder or operating agreement is the next step in your business plan. It's the rules of the road of the partnership. You want to use some of the base of your business plan and then build upon it to express and put in writing exactly what you want to have happen for this business. So what I would say is this is the contract between the members as to what's going to happen. This would include your expected capital contribution. So capital contribution is how much money you're bringing to the table. Are you going to bring $10,000? Are you bringing $500? Are you going to develop a website? What are you doing to earn your ownership in this entity? The next would be how the power is allocated. Is this a member managed or a manager managed? Is there one person in charge? Is everybody equal? How does that work? And assessing how does the voting process go? If it's under $5,000, do I need approval from all members? If it's under $50, do I need approval from all members? These are the things that you break out in these operating agreements, and you can make it clear that somebody has the right to do a specific task. Maybe they're in charge of HR. They're allowed to hire anybody with a starting salary below $50,000 without approval. But if it's above $50,000, there has to be a table. You have to come to the table and discuss it, and all the parties have to be involved. This is a super important document because right now, when you form this company, everyone is excited. Everybody wants this to succeed. Everybody's working towards a common goal. But as soon as the business is on its way, people start to divert. Their interests change, what they're doing for the business changes. And so the longer you go forward without an operating agreement, the rougher it is if there's a dispute that comes up, because you all will have different goals. Some people will want to take a draw or a salary early, whereas others may be more flexible. And if you guys haven't laid this out for everyone right now, or as soon as you've opened the company, your expectations may no longer be in a line with the expectations of your other members. Additionally, you want to discuss what the additional factors and sub-factors of your partnership look like. What happens if the partnership breaks down? Can someone buy out the other? What happens if somebody gets in trouble and they're bringing negative press to the company? Do you have the ability to vote them out or buy them out? What happens if somebody dies? These are all things that you need to establish in your operating agreement to make sure that this business can survive the turmoil of common life. And this is a long document. It's not an easy one, but it's something that you need to get put in place. I am an advocate for getting this type of document in place, even if you can't afford a lawyer. Do it yourself. Look online, find a template, and work on it. Look through the different options. Find the options that fit best with your business. And, you know, it might not be as expansive, or it won't be as expansive as if you hired counsel to do this for you, but at least you have something in place. It's very important to get something in place. You can always agree to change it later with a vote of the members, but you want to get this in place now so that you can make sure that that life is easier for everyone as it goes forward. Other things that are discussed in this, in the operating agreements, are normally can members take loans from the company? Can there be additional capital contribution? What does it look like if we want to bring another partner in? Who has to get insurance? What type of insurance are we going to get? What does the accounting look like? Who's going to do tax preparation? What type of indemnification or the ability for the company to protect the members and managers from doing things on behalf or with the company's blessing? What type of indemnification is there? What happens if there is a dispute? This is a huge one to get out of the way right away. If there's a dispute, are you going to go through the traditional justice system? Or are you guys going to use an alternative dispute resolution tactic like arbitration, where you go and it's less formal, it's cheaper, you just pick a judge from one of these arbitration groups and they hear the case and you don't have to go to court? Is there going to be confidentiality associated with that? These are all things that you really need to discuss and build out now. I know it's so easy, and I've done this before in my other businesses where I haven't put an operating agreement to paper right away. And then as you get further down the road, it gets harder and harder to do it because you don't have defined tasks. Everybody's doing a little bit of everything, and you can't separate people out to doing what they do best. And it frustrates the purpose of your business a little bit, and you can avoid that. And so this is one of those things that I would just emphasize to the moon. Get an operating agreement in place. It doesn't matter if it's on a scrap of paper, just do it. And the way that you affect an operating agreement is just by having a meeting of the minds and having both parties sign it. So if both parties agree to it, there's nothing super special. You need to vote on it or agree to it and enact it, and you can always adjust it together later on to meet your needs. But you want to make sure that you're doing everything necessary to protect yourself and the business, and this is a big one. So once you've gotten your business up and running, you've got your operating agreement, you've got your entity going, you've got your bank account, and you've seen you're starting to work, and you've gotten to the point where you can no longer, as a founder, take all the work yourself. And this will happen sooner than you think, because you may not be great at graphic design, or you may not be great at cold calling people in sales, but you know you need those positions. So then it's time to evaluate having either an independent contractor or an employee. An independent contractor is generally someone that you hire either on a one-off position for benefit or on a recurring position. And it is something where it's an independent business or person that is not an employee of the company, but still can render services for a fee. This is one of the most abused classifications for labor. And there is an analysis to determine whether someone is an independent contractor or an employee. But first we'll go to an employee. An employee is someone that you hire that works for you. They can be part-time, they cannot. you will have to, they work for you. You have control over how their business they operate under your business, and you will be responsible for certain tax requirements, and it's a more formal relationship. An independent contractor relationship is less formal, but there are still quite a few regulations on it. It allows you the most flexibility in that you don't have to set aside taxes for them. You don't have to, there are no benefits. There's no hiring or firing. The contracts kind of expire. There's no unemployment insurance. It's a lot less aggressive. But regardless, both need contracts. You need a contract for your independent contractors or employees. And so that's really important. When you're assessing that, don't take shortcuts. Make sure that you're addressing all the things that need to be addressed in this contract. An example of those would be your intellectual property rights. Who owns what? What are the hours that you're going to work? What is the wage? What obligations does each party have? When will work get done? What are the scope? All of those things need to be in those agreements. When you will see, and lots of folks on the internet and elsewhere will recommend that when you start, you hire independent contractors. They're cheaper overall and generally more flexible, as I've said. But there is a special set of factors when evaluating whether this person is an independent contractor. I'll go through a couple just in Colorado. One of them is that the company doesn't require the individual to work exclusively for them. So does the independent contractor work for more than one business? Can they work for more than one business? And is it for a finite period of time? If you restrict the rights of the contractor and it's an indefinite duration, that sounds a whole lot like an employee, not as a contractor. But if you're hiring someone to occasionally do some graphic design work, well, then that's likely an independent contractor. And you need to be very cognizant of this and go to the Department of Labor's website and look up the differences. It's a multi-factor analysis, but if you're doing this in good faith, it's generally going to be close to what the law is. And the consequence of violating or misclassifying an independent contractor could be a civil fee. It could be the payment of back wages or proper withholdings. There's a lot of negative consequence if you abuse these classifications. So we've got a question. So we have, after a company is set up and running, I'd like to put aside some money for the rainy day, besides taxes, legal fees, and maintenance. What other factors should I consider when saving? So you should consider your burn rate. So trying to make sure that if there's an unprecedented event like a pandemic, that you can keep people going and keep your business afloat, keep your inventory up. All of those things should be factored into assessing your rainy day fund. Now, there's a lot of disagreement as to how much money should be in a rainy day fund. Some people say it should be 18 months, which is crazy. That's a lot of money. The total expenses times 18, I don't know many businesses that can do that. But you should work and set aside a small percentage of every sale to trying to build up for at least a month, if not 3 months, to get yourself a little bit extra cushion. Because there are a few things more stressful than waiting until payroll comes or paying your invoices and looking at your account get lower and lower, getting closer to that zero. Because if you haven't set aside funds and something negative happens, or you have to buy new product, or maybe you're selling a widget that is no longer needed and you're stuck with a lot of inventory. You have to have the flexibility to move and allow yourself greater flexibility to keep your business afloat. And that rainy day fund also allows you to pivot if you need to. And pivoting is where you change the focus or the mission of your company towards a new goal. And so, for instance, say you were originally making bath mats. Yep.
Yeah, we have a question in Q&A. I just wanted to let you know so you can maybe focus on that since you're getting closer to that idea.
Yep, that is what I'm addressing, the Ariel Krause question.
All right, thank you.
Yep. And so maybe you've got that, and you need funds to make the jump with new machines or with new options. And so that's a reason for those rainy day funds and things to consider when making that evaluation. It's all about what your expected expenses are, and then how long you can run your company at the current rate, and how much wiggle room you feel comfortable with, and you want to make sure that you don't have that additional stress. So that'd be my kind of big area of how I would evaluate that. So once you get employees going, and once you've gotten your independent contractors working, you're progressing along, and your business is getting closer and closer to self-sufficiency. There are two separate styles of business. There is your fast growth or your leisure business. So if you're in a fast growth business where you are spending significantly more than you are making to scale, those are generally either venture capitalist backed or investor backed enterprises, and they have a different expectation. Their goal is the revenue will come, but first we need to get up to scale to be able to serve this huge need that we see. An example of that would be, for instance, Uber or DoorDash. Those companies, they started out churning these things and spending way, way, way more than they were making because they had funds coming from outside sources. And so they would calculate out, okay, we can lose $200 million a year because we anticipate that we have all this funding coming in. And so everybody's doing this as an investment, hoping that we will turn into Amazon or one of these mega players. The other is a leisure business. A leisure business is more of your mom and pop, traditional, slower developing business. It's not that it's not profitable. It's not that it doesn't have organic growth. It's not that it's in any sort of negative compared to your venture-backed business. But your leisure businesses are going to be those businesses where you're doing it, either you're bootstrapping it, where you don't necessarily have a huge investor pool, or you're not looking for series rounds of funding, or you're trying to develop this business on your own. It doesn't mean you can't make the jump later down the line or pivot towards one of these other options, but it's just a very different approach. And so if you have a venture-backed kind of business, or where you have investors, something that's really important is to make sure that the operating agreement and the business plan coincide with the expectations of your investors, to make sure that you're hiring at the rate you need to hire, or you're growing at the rate you need to grow, or you're changing direction when things are not going that way. If you're in a leisure business, it's a lot easier, because while it's still important for everyone to be on the same page, this business is going to grow as the market allows. So it's going to grow, you're going to say, okay, I have too much work for me and my employee, I need another one. But you're not forcing the growth. And so that's the big difference, I believe, between venture-backed and these leisure businesses. And so it's a really important aspect for you to evaluate which one are you in, which one do you want to be in? Because it's, if you were to talk to the CEO of Uber, he'll talk about how stressful it was trying to always make sure that they had another investor in lined up to make payroll, to grow, to see the expected growth year over year or month over month. And so it's just a different evaluation completely. And that's a big differentiating factor especially for startups. So that's kind of what I've got for the small business and startup conversation. The other area of my practice, and we'll do a Q&A once we're done. The other area of my practice is influencer marketing and content creator marketing. So influencers and content creators are your YouTube, your Instagram, your Amazon, your Facebook, all of those content creators who make videos, images, all sorts of streams, all sorts of things that younger consumers tend to flock to. So YouTube has billions of hours of content. It has thousands, if not millions, of creators on the platform, and it has huge viewing potential, and it has huge user engagement. And so what a lot of companies are finding is that it's really important to find another way to get access to your client base or your customer base. And these influencers and content creators are with the audiences so frequently that they become like a digital friend almost. And so they have a lot higher conversion rate and ability to push sales and raise awareness for products than traditional direct media or print media or even TV commercials. They can be tailored to the audience, and you can get very detailed demographics in almost real time to see who's watching what. And so we work with influencers and content creators to help their businesses start up, but also to help make brands aware of the opportunities for them. And so that's another area of my practice and GreenRoom's practice. So with that, I will open it up to questions if anybody has any. All right, so the question is the difference between employee and independent contractors. The downside for improper classification seems pretty strong. We don't want to make any mistakes, but if we're classifying worker as an employee or a contractor is close, what classification should I default to? Always default to an employee. An employee is the safest designation. It's a little bit more expensive, and that's why people take the shortcut. But the issue is that the Department of Labor isn't going to come and issue you a citation or a fine for having somebody overclassified. They will if they're misclassified. If they could be an independent contractor, maybe like it's close, you should just default to the employee. It's not worth the headache later on. All right. Anybody else have any questions?
I actually had a question. So I was looking into YouTube content marketing, and I would say, how would someone work toward marketing themselves on YouTube with such a saturated market and trying to niche themselves to really gain a following?
Okay, so are you saying that as a content creator or as a business, or like, are you making the content or are you trying to gain awareness for your business?
Either or. I would be more interested in creating the content myself.
Okay, perfect. So the creating the content yourself is there's no shortcuts. It's hard work, but there are things that you can do to increase your exposure and encourage the algorithm to recommend and increase the impressions that your channel would get. So the biggest thing that new creators make the mistake of is they don't put time into the thumbnail, for instance. The thumbnail is the little image that goes, for anybody who doesn't know, is the little image that shows up on the YouTube user interface that's a little cat. It's got the title on the side, and then it's an image of saying what the video is going to be about. And so that thumbnail needs to be a priority, because the algorithm looks at that thumbnail and then it will, depending on what it is, it will increase its impression rate, so putting it out more and more. And then the other thing is, if you're doing proper thumbnails, the user that sees the impression, so just when it's on the page, will be more likely to engage with that video. Additionally, there are things you can do with the titling, the hashtags and metadata and the description. You can manipulate those a little bit. And so what you want to do is you want to, say you have keywords, say we're doing, for this, it would be, startup law or business formation. You would pick these keywords. You'd pick a couple, maybe 6, keywords, and you would put them as the tags. They want to be the clearest and most concise of what you're making. So if you're making basketball videos, basketball is going to be one of them. But you want to avoid things like court. You don't want court as a tag, because court could be criminal court, it could be civil court, it could be a basketball court, it could be a food court. You want to avoid any sort of ambiguity, because the algorithm looks at your title, it looks at your description, it looks at your tags, your hashtags, and it says, okay, who am I going to put this in front of to try to get people to engage with it? Because YouTube makes money by finding content for the viewer that they will watch. And they want as much watch time as possible. They want you to binge this content. And so the clearer you make it for the algorithm, the easier it is for you to get those views. I went a little quick over the thumbnail. When you're doing your thumbnail, you want to follow kind of the industry standards here. It's 2 to 3 human people in or characters in the thumbnail. You want to break it into thirds. You want to be prevalent. The person who is the feature of it, you want them to be prevalent in the frame. So I would generally, when you break it into 3 quadrants, you want them to be straddling that 1 and 2 or 2 and 3. So either on there or dead center. And so and showing strong emotion gets the best engagement. So if you've got, say you're doing a vlog and it's about going fishing, and you caught a fish, you want that fish in your face looking excited, like, oh my goodness, I caught a fish, because that people are naturally gravitate to things that have higher emotional appeal. And so that's going to be a big one for you to grow your audience. The other thing that I would be looking at is YouTube is pushing towards more traditional media. It is viewed in a way that they want you to be able to binge the content. So if you're doing the same thing over and over again, where it's like, okay, this is, I'm doing vlog content, it's 8 to 10 minutes long, and it features me and my friends doing wacky things. That's going to be the best way to get your engagement. So I think, is there anything else?
No, I just wanted to know if any of the attendees had any more questions that they would like to put in the Q&A or the chat. And they can just put them down there and ask more questions. As far as actual business contenting goes for YouTube, how would you go about doing that to get more following?
Okay, so what I would be doing is rather than having, if you're a business that's trying to engage with consumers, I would not set up a YouTube channel for the business. What I would be doing is saying, okay, I'm selling nails. If I'm selling nails, I'm going to be selling them to construction workers and DIY enthusiasts. So let's find content creators that are in line with those things. And I would go directly to the agencies or management companies that deal with the creator, because it will also often have a business in the bottom, and reach directly out to them for an integration. If it's not super expensive to work with some of these smaller creators. There's this micro influencer push right now where folks between like 15,000 subscribers and 100,000 subscribers are doing smaller brand deals where it's say $500 or $1,000 for a video where they'll do a shout out for the business and talk about the business or the product. And so that's how I would do it. My firm works with a lot of creators. And so what we do is we do brand outreach. We say, look, this is a brand. We've got talent we think would work really well with your brand. And so let's set something up. And so that's how we go about doing it. But if you're from the business side, it's that outreach and saying like, hey, we've got an opportunity. We want to do it. Be aware, the larger the creator, the higher the fee. And you know, if you get up to some of these really high level talent, it's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars for an integration. But if you're in the smaller and mid-range, you can do it for thousands of dollars. And you could either do an integrated video where all they do is talk about your product, or you could do a shout out where it's a 90-second or 45-second, you know, this is a cool thing. I like this. You should go check it out.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Does anyone else have any questions or comments on anything we learned today? Also, Will, I wanted to ask if you wouldn't mind, would you be able to share your contact information so if people had more in-depth questions, they can be able to contact you later on outside of the webinar?
Absolutely. Would you like me to just put it in the chat?
Yes, you can do that.
All right.
So there, wait. Okay, and can you retype that into the all version to all people?
Yeah, I can try.
Once he does that, we're going to end this session. Just a reminder, guys, that this will be up on Project X's website under Xplore Workshop. So if you want to go over anything he said in this webinar or get his contact information, you can just reach out to us and we can give that out to you guys again. And then I hope you guys all have a wonderful day. Thank you again, Will, for joining us and giving us some knowledge on startup law.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and have a good day.
Have a good one. Bye, everybody.
Bye.